No one expected this would be the last spring festival in human history. With an unprecedented extreme cold current descending, there would be no more spring days in the world from then on, and the train back to the city I was on, because of this heavy snow, was directly intercepted in the mountains. As the temperature outside the car plummeted to -70°C, the power system collapsed. Under the scarcity of supplies, the people in the train went mad. In the end, even I was pushed out by my boyfriend, just to exchange for a worn-out cotton jacket for warmth. The next time I opened my eyes, I followed my boyfriend onto that death train again. Only this time, I got off the train with all my luggage in advance. Without looking back, I drove my big truck and hid in a hot spring cave that was already full of supplies. When I opened my eyes, my nostrils were filled with a strong smell of coal smoke. I was stunned for a few seconds before realizing I was lying on a hard Kong bed. The stove by the Kong was burning fiercely, but my forehead was covered in cold sweat, and my hands and feet were as cold as if they had just been fished out of the snow. The old cloth curtain at the door was lifted, and a man walked in. "What time is it? Get up quickly. My mom wants you to help make dumplings." I didn't move, just stared at the dilapidated roof beams, the big red paper, cut on the window, my mind in a mess. Making dumplings, window paper, cuts, Kong bed, almost forgot. This is Zhang Xinqing's hometown, Zhangjiatan. I swept my gaze to the man beside me, dressed in a padded jacket, leaning against the Kong, gnawing on a hot bean bun. And who else could it be but my 24, filial piety boyfriend, Zhang Xinqing? After 3 years of dating, this was the first time he brought me back to his hometown for Spring Festival to meet his parents. Zhang Xinqing and I met at work. When we first met, he was down to earth, considerate, and took great care of me. At home, he never let me set foot in the kitchen, and he took care of all the housework himself, always busy and diligent. Ever since my parents passed away, I haven't felt the warmth of a home for a long time. So when Zhang Xinqing proposed to me with a diamond ring worth 100,000 yuan, I agreed without a second thought. It was only when I followed him to his hometown that I realized his family lived in such a remote little mountain village. The roads here are all dirt roads, and it takes an hour to drive from the train station. The houses here are also made of mud brick walls, so simple they are almost disconnected from modern society. Yet, in such a poor family, there were 2 older sisters above him and a younger brother below him, and the family survived on that small patch of land. Zhang Xinqing told me that he was the only university student in their village, and his parents were very happy that he could marry me now. I lowered my eyes and smiled. His parents should be happy. After my parents passed away, they left me 2 properties and millions in inheritance. His parents knew this. Wouldn't they be happy? Ever since I arrived at his home, I haven't felt the warmth of a family. Instead, I've been subjected to quite a few intimidation tactics. In so many words, they implied I was too old, thought that since my parents were dead, I was still unmarried at 27, and had a tough fate. If it weren't for Zhang Xinqing liking me, in our village, they probably wouldn't dare to marry me even with a dowry of hundreds of thousands, no matter how much I paid them. Seeing that I still hadn't moved, Zhang Xinqing realized something. After all, we weren't married yet, and if I felt neglected at a time like this and got angry, everything he planned would go to waste. He immediately got up and came closer, helping me up from the bed. "Xinyan, this is your first time visiting, and my parents don't know what kind of dumpling filling you like. They were afraid you wouldn't get used to it, so they used the excuse of having you help make dumplings to chat with you and ask about your preferences. They didn't actually want you to do the work." Zhang Xinqing was always so sweet, talking. I pulled my hand back and nodded. "I'll go right now." Getting out of bed, I took my water cup and went to the corner of the yard to wash up. While washing up, from the kitchen separated by a wall, Zhang's mother was still picking chives, and Zhang's father was chopping meat filling. The 2 of them worked and laughed, as if chatting about some big happy news. If you just got a little closer, you could hear what the old couple was planning. "Is that girl still not up?" Sigh. "Girls from the city are lazy. I don't know if she'll be able to take care of Xinqing in the future." "Don't worry. There's nothing she can't learn if she's forced to. She's marrying Xinqing, and I'll have plenty to teach her later." Don't you remember how your old mother bossed me around when I married into the Zhang family back then? Zhang's father didn't respond and changed the subject. I figure now that Xian Cheng is married. Xian Wu should also go to the city to find a partner. It's not easy to find a partner in the city. Xian Cheng said they want money and a house. Not everyone is like this girl, whose parents are dead and left a large inheritance. Such a good catch falling from the sky. What are you afraid of? Once Xian Cheng marries her, won't that inheritance all belong to our Zhang family? I heard there are 2 houses. Once they get the certificate, our whole family will move there. We've lived in this broken village for decades. It's time to enjoy life. Will she agree to that? Why wouldn't she agree? Xian Cheng proposed to her with a diamond ring worth 100,000 to win her over. Zhang's mother's eyes widened. How much? That brat. Is he not going to live frugally anymore? With that money, he doesn't know to help his brother, but instead buys a cheap ring for that girl. At this point, Zhang's father chuckled. It was rented, but it's still 200 yuan a day. Otherwise, do you think that girl would be willing to come back to the city with Xian Cheng for the new year? After the new year and they get the certificate, he can return the ring, although it's quite an expense. Once they get the certificate, the house will be transferred to him, so it's not a loss. That girl isn't an idiot. She'll agree to return it. Just say she lost it herself. Then she'll be the one owing Xian Cheng a favor. What our family wants then. She won't be able to refuse. Listening to this plan of getting something for nothing, I leaned against the wall and sneered. The faces of these Zhang family members are exactly the same as in my previous life. In my previous life, hearing this, I was so angry that I had a big argument with Zhang Xinqing, and even booked a return train ticket on the spot, intending to cut ties with him once I got back. But this time, I held back. After all, compared to what was about to happen in the future, this was nothing. No one knows I've been reborn, and no one would have thought that the train returning to the city for work in a few days would become a death train. And this spring festival will be the last spring festival in human history. In my previous life, I was only focused on giving Zhang Xinqing the cold shoulder on the train, and didn't realize that the snow outside the window was getting heavier and heavier. When I woke up after dozing off for 3 hours, I realized that the train had been forced to stop in the mountains due to heavy snow. At that time, the train repeatedly broadcasted announcements, with the conductor telling everyone to remain calm and reassuring us that rescue would arrive soon. However, this rescue didn't appear until the afternoon of the next day, and by then, the temperature outside had plummeted from 10 degrees Celsius to 40 degrees Celsius. As the temperature outside continued to drop, the passengers in the carriage finally realized something was wrong. Everyone kept refreshing their mobile phones and discovered that the whole world had been paralyzed by a cold wave, and this sudden heavy snow had buried all cities in just a few hours, let alone rescue. It's not even certain if there were any survivors outside, as the temperature outside the train gradually dropped to minus 70 degrees Celsius. The train's power system finally couldn't hold on and collapsed. Instantly, cold and darkness enveloped the entire carriage, and the temperature inside dropped rapidly from above zero to below zero. It was from then on that the atmosphere in the train gradually became eerie. By the 3rd day, someone couldn't hold back any longer. The first troublemakers were a group of renovation workers. This group of people, because they hadn't bought reserved seats, slept under the seats in the middle of the night, and the girl sitting above had her calf touched by a worker in the middle of the night, and was so scared that she immediately called the police. After this incident, the group of workers remembered the conductor's location. In the early stages of the incident, they sneaked into the duty room in the middle of the night. The on-duty conductor was killed by them together, and with the gun, these people began to show their true colors. Relying on the gun, they coerced people in the carriage to take out all the supplies from their luggage, calling it an equitable distribution. But in reality, anyone who didn't comply was shot and killed on the spot, and the girl who called the police back then was the first to be dealt with. Seeing the girl thrown out of the train, the blood on her neck froze not long after it flowed out. Everyone was scared stiff, and only then did they obediently hand over their belongings one by one. They used the guns to drive out everyone from the dining car and business car, sealed all the windows with cotton clothes and quilts, and then stockpiled the plundered supplies in the dining car. and everyone who was robbed had to keep offering things in exchange for food. Some people chose to take off their cotton shoes to avoid starving to death. Some people chose to hand over a lighter in exchange for a pair of cotton shoes. Times like this, money and valuables were all worthless. Even if banknotes were scattered all over the carriage, they could at most be used as fuel for heating, and Zhang Xinqing, for a bite to eat, traded away his last thin fleece jacket. Later, almost frozen to death, he sold me to the other party in exchange for a worn-out cotton coat. To survive, I submitted. At that time, I was placed in the first-class seating area, except for being pulled into the first-class cabin every night to keep warm and snatching some food while they were doing evil. I was left in the first-class seating area, not daring to move. During that period, I realized why these workers were so bold. It turned out that each of them had taken lives, and the ID cards they used to travel were not their own. The supplies in the carriage were limited. After 3 months, the number of living people in the carriage decreased, and the number of corpses piled up outside the carriage increased, until the food in the carriage was almost all gone. Soon, their attention fell on women and children. I will never forget that snowy night, because I struggled. I poked out one of their eyes with a chopstick, and was then directly thrown out of the carriage by them, and Zhang Xinqing joined them to survive. At that time, he was wrapped in his cotton coat inside the car door, watching with his own eyes, watching me helplessly banging on the car door outside. I was eventually frozen to death outside the car, but I never expected that the next second I opened my eyes again. I had actually returned to 3 months before the cold current hit. At that time, I desperately hoped it was all a nightmare, all imagined by my pre-wedding jitters, but the dream was too real, and I was still shaken. To verify the truth of everything, I gave Zhang Xinqing a sleeping pill. The moment I unlocked his phone with his fingerprint, I was stunned. In the chat records with his parents, they had already planned to wipe out my family. They even consulted an insurance company about accident insurance, with an insurance coverage of up to tens of millions, and the diamond ring that Zhang Xinqing once flaunted in luxury stores with me, just as his parents said in my previous life, was rented by him at a daily rate of 200 yuan. And even the source of the rental information was clear. At that moment, cold sweat broke out on me. The moment I realized everything was real, I had no time to grieve. While Zhang Xinqing was sound asleep, I immediately took the diamond ring receipt and its box back to the luxury store and returned it at an 80% discount. After getting the money, I turned around and mortgaged the property deed that the Zhang family had coveted for a long time, and unfroze all the inheritance left by my parents. This time, I'm not just going to survive. I want Zhang Xinqing dead too. The cold current in the previous life descended suddenly. But if it hadn't been for that train passing through the mountains at that time, it's estimated that it would have been completely covered by heavy snow in an instant, and there was no possibility of survival for the people on the train. But why did the temperature outside the train drop only a day later, even though the outside temperature had already dropped to -70 degrees Celsius? I realized that there might be some peculiar landforms in that mountainous area. So I immediately consulted maps and searched for various geological literature and data for that region. After several days of sleepless work, I finally found the answer. Although the area looks like it's surrounded by lush green mountains, the mountain bodies are actually located in an area with active geothermal activity. Usually, such places are either volcanic belts or plate boundaries. Having discovered this, I immediately took leave and went to the mountainous area where the train had stopped in my previous life. During this period, I made excuses about going on a business trip, because I am in the freight logistics industry. When Zhang Xinqing heard that I might get a promotion and a raise after returning from my business trip, he had no objections. I arrived at a county town closest to that mountainous area. Because this county town is backed by a large mountain, it has many cultural attractions, and there are dozens of local travel agencies. I pretended to be a scenic developer and talked about cooperation with these travel agencies. After several rounds of drinks, some people remained tight-lipped, while others found it hard to hold back. Through my week of surveying and visiting, I finally discovered a deserted holiday resort that was rarely visited by humans. The local travel agent said that resort was the former county magistrate's private estate, built under the guise of public ownership. However, less than half a year after construction began, the magistrate was investigated and punished for, and the half-built construction site on the mountainside became a shell project. Abandoned for nearly 2 years now, I wondered, since this county town is a tourist attraction, why no one continued the development. The answer I got was that the place was still 7 or 8 kilometers of mountain road away from the county town, apart from the magistrate building it as his private estate. No one would make a special trip there. They even advised me to drop the idea of going there, saying it was a bit eerie and people often went missing. Perhaps the magistrate disturbed something, which is why things happened. Compared to natural disasters, any talk of ghosts and monsters is not worth mentioning. The more they said that, the more I wanted to go and see. I turned around, rented an off-road vehicle, and headed straight for that abandoned shell project. As I drove along the winding mountain road and reached the mountainside, I finally saw the abandoned shell project. I glanced at the terrain and drove the car all the way to the highest point. Compared to some impressive-looking villas below, the place with a specially paved asphalt road made me even more curious. I went around some miscellaneous steel bars and then saw that at the end of the road was a cave entrance. This entrance was finely crafted. 2 semicircular large doors were sealed with cross-shaped seals, which also read XX Court, apparently sealed on the same day as the ones below. The travel agency people said this place was developed as a hot spring resort, but in those small Western-style houses below, apart from dried pools, there's no sign of hot springs. Could the secret be in this mountain cave? To explore this mountainous area, I brought plenty of gear. I parked my car at the entrance and carried my backpack myself, pushing open that large door with all my might. Because it was noon, the sunlight falling within 3 feet of the door made everything inside clearly visible. Inside the door, it was obvious the county magistrate had already heavily renovated it with people. This place looked like an oversized, natural entryway, a space of at least 100 square meters. But it was empty. After crossing this empty space, there was another exquisitely carved double-sided tiger head iron gate in front of me. I turned on my flashlight to illuminate the space inside the bronze door and discovered that starting from this tiger head gate, there was a downward spiral staircase corridor. And next to the entrance of that corridor, there was even an elevator installed in a mountain cave. That's way too high tech compared to the empty area outside just now. This place looked more like a proper entryway. Strictly speaking, as my flashlight beam shone along, the snow-white marble floor looked like it was cut from a single piece, and even the handrails of the staircase were made of top-quality redwood. This county magistrate is really rich. I picked up my flashlight and shone it around, and saw another small door next to the elevator. I went up and pushed it open, and discovered this was actually the power distribution room for the entire cave. I swallowed, tentatively reached out to pull down the circuit breaker, and the next second, I heard the buzzing of the motor starting up. In a short while, the entire cave was suddenly brightly lit, and even the elevator outside lit up. It's actually powered here. Isn't it abandoned? I reached out to touch the switch on the circuit breaker in disbelief and found a thick layer of dust on it. Above the circuit breaker, there was another circuit breaker labeled solar energy and backup generator set. At this moment, immense surprise flooded my nerves, and my heart started pounding. I never expected they'd installed solar panels and backup generators here. Looking again at the 2 large iron doors tens of meters apart at the entrance, I imagined that after a few months, when the extreme cold arrived, all the roads below would be covered in heavy snow. Then wouldn't this place become an excellent safe base that could isolate from the extreme cold outside? This county magistrate, maybe he'd planned to build a safe house here for himself to hide from accountability long ago. I suppressed the surprise in my heart and walked down the spiral staircase. Compared to the Western-style houses at the foot of the mountain, this cave seemed to have taken more effort. Coming down the spiral staircase, my gaze fell upon a spacious hall. The ceiling of this hall was a natural cave, and the floor below had been paved with natural marble tiles. There were no lights around. All the light strips were embedded in the stone walls. Below the stone walls was a dry pool, and above the pool was a filtration system, which looked like it was meant for raising fish. The platform above the pool was covered with soil, and the yellowish, dry soil was filled with dried up tropical plants. Those plants seemed to have survived on the light from above. If they hadn't been without water and light for a long time, they might still be alive now. The world of the rich, this low-key yet extravagant design, is truly eye-opening. This hall looks like a lounge area. Passing through the hall, there are 2 doorways on each side. I first went into the right one to check. I found the corridor behind the doorway looked dirty. This corridor only had basic lighting. Following the light, I walked forward and found several rooms: a steam room, a sauna, a KTV audio, visual room, a mahjong room, and a starlight cinema room. The decoration and furnishings in these rooms were basically completed. But looking further inside, I found a lot of clutter and paint buckets, which looked like it hadn't been finished decorating yet. I walked past the messy stuff to the very back, only to discover that outside the unfinished wooden floor, the original structural layers of the cave were exposed. Between the warm, moist rocks, there were now 7 or 8 hot spring pools of various sizes. The warm water vapor rose upwards, and I tilted my head to look up. I saw that the top of the rock cave here wasn't repaired but maintained its original appearance. The water vapor dispersed with imperceptible airflow, suggesting that the rock layer above likely had a gap leading to the outside. I bent down and touched the ground here. The stones were slightly hot to the touch, about 40-something degrees Celsius. It seems this is the geothermal area mentioned in the Zulal. This is equivalent to natural heating. So with this, I don't have to worry about how cold it is outside anymore. I walked past all the hot spring pools and found there was another independent space deeper in. But the lights weren't installed that far, and this area looks like it hasn't been fully developed yet. I lit a piece of paper and threw it directly into that space. As the paper continued to burn, a gust of wind suddenly made the flame shoot higher and higher. It seems there's air circulation here too. I confidently walked further inside, paying attention to my footing as I went. In fact, every time I passed a spot, I stuck an emergency wireless spotlight onto the wall. After sticking up 5 spotlights, I finally reached the end of the cave. Looking up, I discovered that at the top of this vast space, a beam of blinding sunlight shone down through a gap about the size of a bowl. I was stunned. Is there an open air space here? I shone my light on the rocks above, and found that although the opening looked small, it was actually over 10 meters above my position. Then the actual size definitely won't be as small as I saw. It's just that this distance is completely unobstructed. So will the cold air rush into the cave after the cold current arrives? Thinking of something, I squatted down and touched the stones on the ground. Fortunately, the stones were still hot to the touch, and even if snow fell in, it would melt immediately. I remember that in my previous life, that heavy snow only fell once. If it's this distance, even if it falls, it will at most be like rain. I might as well put an inflatable pool in advance, and the collected snowmelt can be used to water the green plants. Even if that cold air really enters the cave, then as long as I make a cold-proof iron door to connect the space with the hot spring pool, even if the cold air really comes down, it won't affect the next room. And here, I can also use it as a main ventilation channel. Thinking of this, I clapped my hands, immediately put away the spotlight, returned the way I came, and entered from the other side to check. I originally thought that the situation on the hot spring side was enough to open my eyes, but I didn't expect that the decoration on the other side would be even more astonishing. After I entered from the door on the other side, I found that a villa was actually hidden inside. This villa uses the mountain body to open several side windows, from which you can exactly see the situation down the mountain, and at the same time, sunlight can also shine into the room through the windows. Compared to the outside, the decoration here is more comfortable and modern, and it doesn't even look like it's in a cave at all. The hall on the first floor can be seen at a glance. There are sofas covered with dust cloths, a TV in a cardboard box, an air conditioner wrapped in plastic bags, and even a built-in wood burning fireplace. When these were seized, did anyone move or liquidate them, or didn't they have time, or forget? Or, as the travel agency said, this place is haunted, and they're too scared to come in. Thinking of Zhang Xinqing's family in my past life calculating my face, My resentment is so heavy that even ghosts would have to give me 3 points. Walking in the villa and thinking of their family. I only felt unlucky. I simply stopped thinking about it and continued to explore the villa. The kitchen here is astonishingly luxurious, with a whole set of top-of-the-line kitchen appliances behind the marble island, like being in a 5-star hotel kitchen. The oven, dishwasher, and refrigerator were all built into the cabinets, and as soon as I reached out, the machine automatically recognized and opened the door. The entire villa was so luxuriously unreal that I didn't look around the first floor much more, but immediately went upstairs quickly to check the bedrooms and bathrooms. There's no need to say more about the bedrooms. They were naturally as luxurious as I had never seen before. To my surprise, even though this place had been sealed for 2 years, the toilet in the bathroom could still flush. I stared at the pipe and tapped it for a long time, but couldn't figure out where its water came from. It wasn't until I went to the sink to run water and touched the warm, slippery water with a sulfurous smell that I was speechless. When people are luxurious to a certain extent, they actually use hot spring water to flush toilets. What about the sewage? I tapped along the pipes all the way back to the first floor to search. Only then did I discover that his pipes actually led somewhere inside the rock wall. I figured they must have specifically used the sewage pipes. It seems this villa should be the most decorated place in the entire cave. It feels like you can just move in directly after the appliances are installed. Such a massive project, half-built, ended up being left unattended, which was a lucky break for me. I have to say, this cave is perfect for a base. I don't even need to develop it further. This time, the hall was substantial. I immediately went back the way I came, flipped the circuit breaker, closed the iron gate, and then put the seal back on. After finishing everything, I drove back to town, rented a yard, 5 freezers, and a large truck, then began a 2-month deployment. First is residential safety. Although the rock layer can effectively insulate the villa area, because it has windows, has its insulation performance greatly reduced. At minus 70 degrees Celsius, ordinary windows can't withstand it at all. They must be replaced with more robust organic, low-temperature-resistant glass. In my previous life, I survived for 3 months. This means that for at least 3 months, external rescue is impossible. I must be prepared for a protracted struggle, so power supply and water are even more important. The lowest temperature solar electric heating panels can withstand is minus 40 degrees Celsius. If I want them to run continuously, I'd have to attach them to the geothermal rocks. Compared to this possibility, preparing more diesel generators seems more reliable, though I still ordered some extra solar panels. If there really comes a day when diesel runs out, it's not too late to consider generating solar power using open spaces. It's safest to be prepared for anything. As for water sources, I directly bought front-end filters and water purifiers. These require a large supply of filter consumables. At least enough to last 10 years should be prepared. Only after the infrastructure is complete do I start considering the easiest part, stocking up. Above a clearing behind the hot springs, there's sunlight, and the ground rocks have natural geothermal heat. If I transplant enough fertile soil, growing vegetables should be fine. At the same time, I can raise some chickens there. They'll live if given some grain daily. Speaking of grain, rice and flour are the most scarce daily necessities. They only get less as you eat them. In extreme cold weather, wheat and rice are the hardest to grow, so I must stock up enough rice and flour. Thinking of this, I immediately ordered tons of rice, flour, grains, and oil from the food factory, receiving deliveries during the day and transporting them to the mountains at midnight. Dried vegetables and various military-grade canned goods are emergency food and are also the most storable. I transported all of these by cart and stored them in the cellar under the villa. It was originally a wine cellar. I guess that county magistrate was caught too early to put any wine there. Anyway, it was empty, so it's better to store some long-lasting items there, besides basic food. I also ordered a lot of cookies, candy, instant food, and drinks in batches. Seeing that the food supplies had almost filled the entire underground hall, some people in town started to get suspicious of my trucks. Every day they saw large trucks delivering goods to the yard, and immediately someone started asking what I did. I didn't hide it either. I showed them the several freezers in my yard, as well as those snacks and drinks. I said I was going to do business supplying food to nearby scenic spots, so I was busy hauling goods around every day. It's true that there are many scenic spots here. Anyway, once the truck left the county town, no one knew which scenic spot I was going to. Seeing how open I was, no one bothered to ask anymore after a long time. After more than a month, almost all the places in the cave that could be filled were filled by me, and even the large living room of the villa area was piled high with boxes of various supplies, and the TV was moved directly into the bedroom by me. As for those freezers, I had already pulled them into the cave and frozen the meat. After the apocalypse, those freezers became useless, and the space behind the large door underground became a natural freezer. As for the window and water purification modifications, I did them myself with a chainsaw in the rented yard, and then brought the things over to install them myself. For this, I also learned some skills from a master craftsman, so that I could handle repairs myself if any problems occurred in the cave in the future. The hardest things to get were medicine and diesel, because the county magistrate was investigated. All the gas stations nearby didn't dare to do anything out of line. I had to drive my big truck to fill up again and again, then siphon it out and store it in buckets. Later, I was filling up so often that the station manager finally dared to accept my 10,000 yuan, and secretly delivered a truckload of oil barrels to me in the middle of the night. As for medicine, I didn't have a license, so I couldn't buy a large quantity. Plus, these things have expiration dates, so I just took a bit more from nearby pharmacies each time. In some places, I paid a little extra and they even gave me prescription drugs. 2 months were almost up, and Zhang Xinqing was getting suspicious. I figured I couldn't hide it anymore, so I loaded the last batch of daily necessities onto the truck, drove the big truck to the parking lot outside the train station, and then took the train back to the city myself. In these 2 months, I visibly lost a lot of weight, and my skin even got darker. People who didn't know would think I'd been taken to northern Myanmar. This made Zhang Xinqing, who was already suspicious of me, completely speechless. He even felt a bit sorry for me, saying I was working too hard for a promotion and raise, and that I couldn't compare to the young guys on the front lines in terms of physical strength. But I didn't mention much, smiling and arranging the details for my spring festival trip home with him. However, the closer it got to the cold wave, the more frequent the dreams from my previous life became. Even to this day, I still have lingering fear. The 2 old guys in the kitchen had already talked from my house to their son Zhang Xinwu, and soon they were talking about having children. After I finished washing up and tidying, seeing that the time was about right, I then tied my apron and entered the kitchen. Uncle, and I'm sorry, I woke up late. I originally planned to get up early to help you too, but Xian Chang took care of me after my journey, letting me sleep more. You two don't mind, right? Seeing me walk in with a smile, the old couple exchanged a glance and quickly greeted me with smiles. Putting aside other things, our Xian Chang knows how to be considerate. You're truly blessed to marry into our old Zhang family. Hearing this, I sneered inwardly. Blessed. It's not even certain if I'll make it out alive in the end. I heard you still don't know how to make dumplings. Before, when Xian Chang wasn't married, Mom and Dad always made them for him. Now that you two are getting married, you have to learn. I nodded obediently and immediately started learning. Seeing my submissive demeanor, Zhang's mother gave Zhang's father a look, and Zhang's father immediately coughed and pressed his advantage. Girl, we country folk don't know the city customs. Xian Chang has already given a ring worth 100,000. Do we still need to prepare anything else? I heard there's no betrothal gift in the city, right? I nodded. There isn't, but there must be a car and a house. After all, it's a marriage. No one is marrying just to take advantage of an only child, right? I said this with a smile, and the old couple was stunned. Just as they were about to retort, I immediately changed my tune. However, it's not easy for you two to raise Xian Chang. Those houses in the city are so expensive. How could you afford them? If you ask me, it's better to buy Xian Chang a car. When they have kids later, it'll be convenient to pick up and drop off you two to see a doctor for minor ailments, right? As I pinched out a strange-looking dumpling, Zhang's mother was too stunned to suppress me anymore. How much does a car cost? It won't cost much. Much cheaper than that diamond ring. You can get one for 50 to 60,000. Wu Liu Wan. When Zhang's mother heard this, her face immediately soured again. She already thought 5 to 600 was too expensive. Zhang's father, having seen more of the world, naturally knew that a small car for 50 to 60,000 in the city wasn't much. He immediately tried to smooth things over. Of course we need one. Don't you worry. Zhang's mother glared at him and pointed at my dumpling, snorting coldly. This girl can't even make a proper dumpling. How can she be considered someone who can manage a household? You should really learn from her. I picked up the dumpling wrappers and continued to make my own tangyuan and dumplings, ignoring her. Uncle, Auntie, do we have a lot of cotton, filled quilts and clothes at home? Why are you asking that? I stopped and pretended to look at the main gate of the yard outside. When I first came, I heard someone was buying back cotton at a high price. I think it was 300 yuan a jean. Zhang's mother's eyes widened when she heard this, and Zhang's father stopped chopping meat and both looked at me. How much? 300 yuan a jean. How is that possible? I smiled and looked outside. Can't be fake. Someone was shouting with a loudspeaker. They should still be at the village entrance. But we still need these quilts and padded clothes to sleep in. What's the use of giving them away? We'll just have to listen to a joke. Unexpectedly, Zhang's mother stopped making dumplings like she was making them, stood up, brushed off her clothes, and ran towards the outside of the village. Before long, she ran back immediately, panting, and directed Zhang's father and Zhang Xinqing, and even dragged out Zhang Xinwu, who was sleeping lazily under the quilt. The whole family dragged everything they could onto the cart and hauled it all out. Zhang Xinqing was the most confused, seeing only me left in the kitchen. He looked confused. What are they going out for? Is someone fluffing cotton? It's Chinese New Year. Who fluffs cotton? I squatted by the stove, slowly pinching my fancy dumplings, and smiled, curling the corners of my mouth. What else could it be? They went to earn your bride price money. As expected, after a while, Zhang's mother returned to the yard happily holding a thick wad of 100 yuan bills with Zhang's father. Seeing the money, Zhang Xinqing's eyes widened. We sold a full 55 jean, that's 17,000 yuan. Zhang Xinwu, however, rubbed his eyes and frowned. Mom, you sold all the quilts and clothes. What are we going to cover ourselves with tonight? Exactly, Mom. It's Chinese New Year, and if you sell all the bedding, there'll be nowhere to buy more. Mother Zhang shot them a glare, then grabbed a pocketful of fried peanuts from the kitchen and handed them to Zhang Xinwu. Go borrow 2 quilts from old Joe next door. Anyway, his son isn't coming back for the new year this year, so the quilts will just go unused. Seeing this, I finally got up. Borrowing one will be enough. Xian Chung, my boss wants me to go back to work early. I have to leave tonight. Do you want to come back with me? My boss said he can book us both first class seats on a business car. Zhang Xian Chung frowned. The new year isn't even over yet. Father Zhang also looked angry. What kind of boss makes people go back to work in the middle of Chinese New Year? How much money does he pay to boss people around like that? I nodded. It's really not that much. Only 50,000 yuan. But I figured it's enough to buy a car. And it'll save uncle and aunt the trouble. Mother Zhang's eyes lit up after hearing that. Oh my, work is the most important thing. Xian Chung, what are you standing around for? Hurry up and help your wife pack. Oh, right, this roast chicken, roast duck, and also the preserved sausage and cured meat. Mom will pack them all for you, and 2 buckets of free-range eggs. These are from our own chickens, very nutritious. Upon hearing this, Zhang Xian Chung also started to move quickly, but seeing that his family had packed all the newly bought chicken, duck, fish, and meat into the luggage, he felt a bit guilty. If you take it all, what will you eat? Father Zhang glanced at the suitcase, then at the wad of cash in Mother Zhang's hand, and waved his hand. Don't worry, aren't there still dumplings? You won't starve. Facing them, I felt no guilt whatsoever. I picked up my things and got into a car that had been called from the neighboring town ahead of time. Just as I was getting into the car, Mother Zhang grabbed Zhang Xinqing from behind and shoved 200 yuan into his hand. Hurry up and coax her to get the marriage certificate. Get things done. And once she's pregnant, everything will be yours. Got it? Her voice was neither too loud nor too soft. and even the driver in front could hear it. He glanced at me in the rearview mirror, saw me looking down at my phone with my eyes not even lifting, pursed his lips, and didn't dare to say anything more. Zhang Xinqing and I rode in the car all the way to the train station, and carrying our luggage, we boarded the train we had booked in advance. The train number was exactly the same as the one in my previous life, except this time we went directly into the business district that had been occupied in my previous life. It was spacious and warm here, so I quickly took off my down jacket, and casually helped Zhang Xinqing take off his clothes too. Neither of us had eaten lunch, so we immediately went to the dining car and ate a big meal. I even paid to order some maoxuang and shuizhu beef. Zhang Xinqing was sweating profusely from eating. Later, he got so hot that he even took off his sweater and returned to his seat wearing only a short-sleeved shirt. He's a person who's very sensitive to heat, especially after eating spicy food. He's basically drenched in sweat and always wishes he could take off all his clothes to sweat it out. Seeing him like this, I asked the waiter for a bottle of iced cola, opened it for him, and put it in front of him. Zhang Xinqing comfortably drank the cola, then let out a satisfied burp. Don't say it. This business class is expensive for a reason. It's spacious and warm, and you can lie down and sleep. Honey, look, there are even slippers here. I smiled and neatly folded his taken-off clothes, one by one, and placed them on his suitcase. Then I also helped him take off his shoes, put on slippers, and adjusted his seat. With you serving me like this, I'm actually getting a bit sleepy. If you're sleepy, go to sleep. I'll wake you when we reach the station. Soon. Zhang Xinqing, having finished his cola, was lying on the seat snoring, his phone, which he had just opened, not even locked, as the scenery outside the window was gradually covered by a thin layer of white snow. I glanced at the time, took out a large bag from my backpack, and silently stuffed Zhang Xinqing's sweater, down jacket, hat, and shoes into it. The well-to-do old ladies in the next row watched all this and clicked their tongues, praising me for being virtuous and good at serving people. I glanced at her and said nothing. As the train entered the station, I got up and pushed the 2 suitcases and the whole bag of clothes towards the door. As I got up, Zhang Xinqing next to me was still sleeping like a log, completely oblivious. After alighting from the business class carriage, service staff immediately came forward to help me with my luggage. Ma'am, do you need me to call a shuttle service to take you and your luggage out of the station? Yes, please. I casually stuffed him 100-yuan bill as a tip, and instantly that service staff became even more enthusiastic. Heavy snow was already falling on the platform, and the biting cold wind blew my hair. I casually threw Zhang Xinqing's bag of clothes into the trash can on the platform, and then I just stood quietly by the door waiting. It wasn't until the service staff parked the electric scooter behind me that I finally took one last look at Zhang Xinqing inside the car, wearing a short-sleeved shirt. The sleeping pills in the cola should be enough for him to sleep until midnight, right? I smiled, tucked a stray strand of hair behind my ear, and then got into the car behind me without looking back. Seeing that the snow was getting heavier and heavier, the driver smiled and looked back. It's really snowing heavily today. Ma'am, where would you like to be dropped off? Ground parking lot 3. Thank you. By the time we arrived at the parking lot, the ground was already covered with a thin layer of snowflakes, like salt, watching the small electric car disappear into the vast snow. I then shoved my luggage into the passenger seat of the large truck, climbed in myself, and immediately drove off without stopping. There were very few cars on the road. After all, no one would come to this county town for tourism during the spring festival. Looking at the surrounding mountains, I exhaled. If my time estimate is correct, in another 6 hours, the entire world will be covered in heavy snow. But even so, the snow outside the car window was already falling rapidly. The windshield wipers kept working, and the snow covering them got thicker and thicker. If there wasn't so much snow, based on past times, it would only take me an hour and a half to drive from the train station to the county town. Then from the provincial highway in the county town into the mountains to reach my destination. But now the snow is getting heavier and heavier, and my truck can't pick up speed at all, so it will take at least twice as long. Actually, if I hadn't gone back to my hometown with Zhang Xinqing, I could have safely reached the cave earlier. But it doesn't matter. I'd rather take some risks. This time, I will absolutely not let him have an easy time. Zhang Xinqing probably wouldn't have imagined that when I picked up my luggage. I had already installed a hidden remote charging camera on the luggage rack in the carriage, and before leaving, I handed a letter reporting theft to a flight attendant. As soon as Zhang Xinqing wakes up and finds his luggage missing, he'll definitely go to the railway police, and because of the letter's content, the police will take him to confront the group of murderers who were posing as workers. In his past life, Zhang Xinqing was so smooth, so fawning, so snobbish, and so opportunistic in pleasing this group to survive, even willing to join them and become an accomplice. But this time, he doesn't have a chance. As long as he angers this group, after one day, he will be the one to be dealt with. I drove the truck on the provincial highway for half an hour. I thought the road would be smooth sailing, but when I passed through the county town, another truck similar to mine suddenly appeared behind me. Because the road was slippery due to the snow, that car wasn't driving fast either, maintaining a distance that was neither too close nor too far from me. During this time, my speed increased. He would also speed up a bit, and when my speed slowed down, he would also slow down accordingly. On mountain roads in snowy weather, large trucks have a habit of tailgating, but my innate sensitivity made me cautious. As I approached the first fork in the mountain road, that truck was still following me, and my scalp instantly tingled a bit. There were still 4 hours left, and 4 kilometers to go. If he continued to follow, I would be in a difficult situation. I didn't hesitate any longer, decisively slowed down and pulled over to the side, then watched coldly in the rearview mirror. Seeing me slow down, the large truck in the rearview mirror was also about to slow down, but upon seeing me suddenly stop on the roadside, it seemed to hesitate for a moment. Soon, under my cold gaze, that truck accelerated and passed me. At the second fork in the road, 20 meters ahead of me, it drove off in the opposite direction. After that car left, I stopped there for another 10 minutes. Only when I was sure that the car wouldn't come back did I start my car again and drive along the original route. After setting everything up, I blocked the outside of this abandoned hot spring resort with some dead trees and stones. If any car passed by, it would have to move these obstacles. But seeing that the stones and dead trees were still in their original positions, and had even accumulated considerable snow, I breathed a sigh of relief. I directly found a rope and used the truck's pulling force to move the obstacles. I drove the big truck into the abandoned resort, making a lot of turns along the dirt road towards the mountainside, and only got out of the car when I reached the cave entrance. At this time, the outdoor temperature had dropped to -10 degrees Celsius, and the snow had reached my calves. Seeing the intact seal on the big iron gate, I didn't hesitate any longer, tore off the seal, pushed the gate open with effort, and then drove the truck directly into the cave. The wind on the mountainside was much stronger than at the foot of the mountain. Even though I had wrapped myself up tightly, the wind and snow still cut into the gaps like ice blades, making my skin hurt. I looked at the thermometer in the car. In just a few hours, the temperature had dropped to -20 degrees Celsius. If I don't speed up, I'm afraid the door won't close. I immediately got out of the car and went to close the iron gate against the wind and snow. But I don't know if it was frozen or if the wind was too strong. The iron gate stopped moving after I pushed it half a meter. The biting, wet, and cold wind gradually permeated my limbs, even through the thickened gloves. The chilling aura from the iron gate almost pierced through me. This won't work. The wind and snow are getting stronger, and if the door isn't closed soon, it really won't close. I glanced at the vast white expanse outside, then immediately turned and ran back to the car to get a thermos. I poured the hot water I had prepared to thaw the ground directly onto the heavy louvers of the 2 large iron doors. With a puff of white smoke, I quickly returned to the center to push the door. This time, the heavy iron door finally moved again. I gritted my teeth and pushed forward half a meter again, but a gust of wind pushed back, and it just wouldn't close. The 1-meter gap between the 2 doors was now accumulating snowflakes at a visible speed. In no time, I was afraid the snow would freeze the door shut again. I glanced back at the truck, gritted my teeth again, and splashed all the remaining water on the door. Then I directly returned to the truck, put it in reverse, and hit the gas pedal to crash backward. With a loud bang, the heavy iron door was finally shut tight. In an instant, All the howling wind and snow were blocked outside the door, and no sound could be heard anymore. After finishing everything, I breathed a long sigh of relief. I drove the truck forward another half-meter to make space, then pulled down the ropes from both sides of the iron door. With a rustle, the heavy windproof door curtains fell from the iron door frame. These door curtains are fireproof and cold-proof. It cost a lot of money to customize such a large size. Seeing these green thick cotton quilts further insulate the cold from the iron door, I clapped my hands and pulled my suitcase towards the second door of the cave. The open space between the first and second doors of the cave was already piled with all sorts of frozen meat by me, leaving only the width of a truck for passage. Here, I've wholesaled 500 whole chickens alone, killed 100 heads of pigs and cattle each, all portioned and cut into pieces, neatly stacked here. Besides these, there are also large quantities of seafood and fish, all placed against the wall in advance. After all, even without the strong cold current, the winter temperature here is close to -10 degrees Celsius, like a natural giant refrigerator. Now, as the temperature outside gets lower and lower, this place has become an even more natural freezer. When I stood at the second door, the foot-mounted recognizer instantly lit up. The next second, the door automatically opened, and a wave of warmth instantly enveloped me. Recognizing my presence, the automatic sensor nearby immediately turned on all the corridor lights. At the same time, an AI system voice sounded, height and weight identified, confirmed as Master Shin Yen. Hello Shin Yen, welcome home. Cave internal constant temperature adjusted to 22 degrees Celsius. Overall humidity 45%. Generator set current power 99.99%. Solar thermal panels working normally. Outdoor area temperature is continuously dropping. Temperature controlled at 15 degrees Celsius. Chicken flock alive. Cattle and sheep alive. Feed supply sufficient. Hall area soil slightly dry. Needs timely watering. I nodded, quite satisfied with this newly installed intelligent system. Originally, the cave only had a set of simple circuit equipment, but I was afraid of someone invading while I was away, so I installed a set of remote intelligent equipment in advance. The ground outside the second main door is equipped with a gravity sensing device. Once it detects someone with a different height and weight, all electrical equipment will enter an alert state and send a warning to my phone. Even the smart lock on the main door will immediately lock automatically, preventing any intruders from getting in. As I pushed my suitcase into the elevator, the second main door slowly closed automatically in front of me. When the elevator doors opened again, the crowded central hall immediately appeared before me. The originally empty space here has long been filled by me with rows of supermarket shelves, fully stocked with everything from daily necessities to emergency medicine. I even tidied up the fish pond beside it. Seeing the lively fish and shrimp in the pond, I casually added some feed. Then I turned on the automatic watering device inside the rock wall to water the newly planted green plants. After putting the items in the villa area, I first checked all the newly reinforced windows. The windows were already covered with heavy snow. To constantly observe the outside situation, I installed heating devices around the windows. Just by pressing a button for less than a minute, the snow on the outside will instantly melt, allowing a clear view of the situation down the mountain. And to make this window more concealed, I added a layer of built-in blinds in the window's interlayer. With a magnet, I just need to pull it upwards, and the situation down the mountain will be completely visible. When not needed, the pure white blinds close, blending in with the surrounding accumulated snow. Just as I expected, the foot of the mountain was already a vast expanse of white. Even the 3- and 4-story Western-style houses were only showing their rooftops. If it keeps snowing, the snow will probably reach halfway up the mountain. Fortunately, this mountain is high enough. Even the train wasn't completely buried by the heavy snow back then, so it's impossible for it to bury me here. I glanced at the time. It had been an hour since the train was stopped by the heavy snow. Tired from the day, I stretched, changed into some home clothes in the bedroom, and took a hot shower. After the shower, I felt refreshed. Then I took a bottle of beer from the fridge and cut some fruit. Then, carrying my phone and laptop, I went directly to the natural hot spring pool on the other side of the hall. The space where the hot spring is located is the warmest place in the entire cave. The thermometer shows the temperature here has reached a high of 30 degrees Celsius. I placed the tray on a rock, removed the shark clip from my hair, and found a pool with a comfortable temperature to sit in. I opened my laptop, and the network automatically connected to the wireless router. Even though the temperature outside is extremely low now, the network signal is still good. I remember that in my previous life, it went completely down about 3 months later, which should be enough time for me to check the situation on that train. I indifferently watched the man in the surveillance feed who was still asleep. I immediately opened the ring pull of the iced beer, and dense bubbles almost overflowed. As the hops slid down my throat, my back was pressed against the 45 degrees Celsius hot spring rock wall, and the sudden hot and cold stimulation made all my pores open. At the steamy poolside, a tablet computer was propped up in a rock crevice, and inside the train carriage, many people were already leaning against the windows looking outside. After the stop where I got off, there were no more stations. If nothing unexpected happens, this train will continue to decelerate for the next hour, and eventually get stuck in the middle of the mountain at midnight, unable to move forward anymore. Suddenly remembering something, I reached into the waterproof bag and took out my phone. Almost forgot. I also installed a temporary monitor in Zhang Xinqing's old bungalow, but his house is halfway up the mountain, so the snow probably won't flood his place that quickly. It's just that Zhang's mother sold all the thick clothes and quilts, so I don't know if she's managed to borrow any quilts yet. The moment I opened the indoor monitor, I saw the entire room was filled with coal smoke. After watching for a long time, I managed to make out 3 soot-covered faces from the coal smoke. I saw Zhang's father, Zhang's mother, and Zhang Xinwu, all huddled tightly around the stove, rubbing their hands. And the coal stove was actually filled with straw stalks. You know, that stuff is usually used for lighting fires in the stove, and it produces a lot of smoke. Even if they sold all their quilts and cotton clothes, they shouldn't be without a single piece of coal, should they? Just as I was wondering, I heard Zhang Xinwu's coughing from the monitor. Mom, it's all your fault. Why did you trade the last bit of coal we had for cotton? Now look, we have no cotton clothes or quilts. The cotton hasn't sold, and we have no coal to burn. It's snowing so heavily outside. Are you trying to freeze us to death? Zhang's mother shivered and said, I traded for cotton for you. That person paid 300 yuan per jean for cotton, and our 50 plus jean of cotton got us 17,000 yuan. Isn't that money? Besides, coal is worth how much? That person said he'd buy as much as he could get. So I went around asking families for this cotton. Who knew that when I went back, the person was gone. That lightning struck bastard. I curse him to get hit by a car when he goes out for New Year. Zhang's father smoked, angrily hitting the cotton on the Kong with his tobacco pouch. Enough. You still have the nerve to curse others. This is just greediness. Now it's good. In this cold weather, none of us 3 have even a thick piece of clothing. And this cotton can't even be made into a quilt. I think you were just swindled. Seeing this, Zhang's mother angrily went to hit Zhang's father. Fine. Blame me. Blame me for everything. What did I do it for? I've suffered my whole life. Isn't it all for you men? Now in the end, you all blame me. Ever since I married into your old Zhang family, I haven't had a single good day. I finally hoped that with New Chang getting married and bringing a daughter in law back, I could have a couple of days of service. But now she's run off during the new year. Seeing Zhang's mother throwing a tantrum and rolling around, a strong gust of wind suddenly came, fiercely blowing open the window sealed with tape. In an instant, the clumps of loose cotton on the Kong were blown all over the room, and some of it was blown directly into the coal stove with the wind. The flames shot up for a moment, and the few people couldn't sit still. Heavens, my cotton, this is all money. Quickly put out the fire. But as the wind and snow kept pouring in from outside the window, the scattered cotton quickly burned when it touched the fire cores. In the blink of an eye, the old cloth curtains of the house, the sheets and duvet covers by the bed were all affected, forming a sea of fire. For a moment, the monitor was filled with thick black smoke and shouting. After a while, a scream came from the phone. It's bad. The roof beam is on fire. The house is going to collapse. As the image on the phone screen suddenly went black, the signal was interrupted. while the old man and old lady's house was burning. Zhang Xinqing was still comfortably smacking his lips in the business class seat. Even when the dining car passed by several times, the waitress couldn't wake him up. Seeing that he was really asleep, no one bothered him anymore. I finished my beer and sighed comfortably, my whole body soaking in the hot spring. A good show not only needs wine, but also snacks to go with it. Thinking this, I got out of the hot spring and returned to the villa area with my phone and computer. Warning: the outdoor temperature has dropped to -25 degrees Celsius. Listening to the system prompt, I placed the laptop on the counter and rinsed the empty can I had just finished, then stacked it by the wall. That train should have stopped by now, right? As expected, when I took a box of chicken wings out of the freezer and put them into the air fryer, the person in the monitor woke up. What's all the noise? Isn't this the business class carriage? Why is it still so noisy? Zhang Xinqing grumbled and opened his eyes, only to find people inside the carriage restlessly pacing around. Just as he was about to scold them, he froze at the sight outside the window. He had no idea when it started snowing outside, nor did he expect that the snow outside had already submerged the tracks at this time. Through the carriage's lights, a vast expanse of white snow could be seen not too far away, and further ahead it was dark, vaguely resembling mountains. This isn't a station either. The train stopped. What's going on? Xinyan. Noticing the empty seat beside him, Zhang Xinqing frowned, immediately got up and looked around. He walked to the aisle and casually grabbed a man who was packing his things next door. Excuse me, have you seen my wife? She was sitting right next to me. The man who was suddenly grabbed was already extremely annoyed. Upon hearing this, he flung Zhang Xinqing's arm away. Next to you. It's always been empty next to you. Besides, it's so chaotic right now. Who knows where your wife went? Get out of the way. Zhang Xinqing was startled. He clearly remembered that when he first got in the car. This man was gentle and very humble. How did he suddenly become like this? Looking around again, there were plenty of people coaxing children and crying while on the phone. In an instant, a bad premonition surged into his heart. Before he could think further, he heard an announcement from the broadcast. Dear passengers, we regret to inform you that due to the cold front, the outdoor temperature has dropped to -25 degrees Celsius. The train is making every effort to call for help from the outside. For your safety, please look after your children and wait patiently in your seats. All train personnel will do their utmost to ensure your safety. -25 degrees Celsius. Zhang Xinqing gasped, only then realizing his arms felt a bit cold. He instinctively reached for his clothes on the seat, but his hand grasped at empty air. Looking down, he realized his sweater, down jacket, hat, and cotton shoes had all disappeared. Where are my clothes? Right, it must be Xinyan who packed them up. With such a big incident, where did she run off to? Zhang Xinqing's face instantly turned black. He immediately picked up his phone to call me, but he didn't know that my phone card had already been thrown on the platform along with me when I got off the train. Hearing the phone's power off tone, Zhang Xinqing frowned. He looked around blankly, his gaze falling on two trained police officers. And those two trained police officers were walking towards the police room with a few dirty and ragged workers. Zhang Xinqing seemed to see a savior and quickly went forward to grab the train attendant's hand. Comrade police, you must help me. My wife, my luggage, and my clothes are all gone. The train attendant looked him up and down. Your name is Zhang Xinqing. How did you know? As he spoke, the train attendant grabbed him by the arm. That saves me from having to look for you. Come with us to the police office. Several workers were originally looking down, but when they heard Zhang Xinqing's name, the leader among them, a man with a scar on his face, looked up at Zhang Xinqing. Did you write the letter? The man's gaze was somewhat sinister, and Zhang Xinqing trembled with fright, hurriedly saying, What letter? I don't know. Comrade police, is there a mistake? I just lost my stuff. I didn't write anything. All right, aren't we helping you find it? We'll check the surveillance footage in a bit, and we'll know. Seeing the police take him away from the carriage, I then opened the air fryer, flipped the chicken wings, then took out the pot and cooked another bowl of instant noodles, adding some washed vegetables and frying an egg. When the steaming hot noodles were out of the pot, Zhang Xinqing reappeared on the surveillance footage. Zhang Xinqing was covered with a thin blanket, which looked like the police had taken pity on him and asked the attendant to find a passenger blanket for him. The meal I ate during the day has long since been digested, and he, starving, walked towards the dining car with his phone, unaware that the dining car had already been shut down urgently. Subsequently, a dining car pushing boxed meals appeared in the business class carriage. Zhang Xinqing's eyes lit up. He scanned 50 yuan and asked for a beef rice bowl. "Excuse me, sir. Braised beef rice bowl, 200 yuan per serving." Zhang Xinqing was stunned. 200 yuan. Are you crazy? Wasn't it 50 yuan during the day? You're not trying to rip me off because I'm in business class, are you? The attendant selling boxed meals smiled. Before she could say anything more, someone beside him pushed Zhang Xinqing aside. "I'll pay 600 yuan for 3 boxes. I want one too. I want Kung Pao chicken. I want 4 boxes." 800 yuan scanned over. As the boxed meals in the dining car in front of him became fewer and fewer, Zhang Xinqing finally realized something was wrong. "I want 1 box. No, 2 boxes." Seeing 400 yuan scanned away, Zhang Xinqing immediately picked up 2 boxes of meals and returned to his seat. But he only had food and no water. He was already desperately thirsty, so he got up again to buy water, only to find that the dining car had already returned empty. The heavy snow outside had stopped, but the train still couldn't move. Now his luggage was gone. Shen had also disappeared, and this situation couldn't go on like this. Zhang Xinqing remembered the snacks the attendant gave him when he boarded the train. There was still half a bottle of mineral water at his feet, so he quickly picked it up and drank it. The lunchbox I just spent 400 yuan on. As soon as I opened it, I found the portion was pathetically small. The rice was only half a fist, and there was even less meat. Besides potatoes, there were only 3 pieces of beef. But at a time like this, there was no choice. Zhang Xinqing immediately ate both lunchboxes. After finishing and wiping his mouth, he then picked up his phone around the thin blanket and sent me a message. "Shen, where are you now? The police just retrieved the surveillance footage and said you got off the bus yourself with your luggage. Weren't you going back to work? Why did you get off the bus halfway? All my stuff is with you. What am I supposed to do if you get off the bus? Also, where did my clothes go? It's snowing heavily outside, and the food in this carriage is too expensive. Hurry up and transfer some money to me." However, Zhang Xinqing messaged for a long time without getting a reply. I was sitting in front of the surveillance camera watching. While I watched, I was munching on golden crispy fried chicken wings. Just then, the system voice chimed again. "Warning, the outdoor temperature has dropped to -30 degrees Celsius. I picked up the hot instant noodles and slurped a couple of strands. Then I heard crying from the surveillance footage. What should we do? I heard it's already -70 degrees Celsius in my hometown. What should we do? Are we going to die here? -70 degrees Celsius. Can people even survive that? It's over. I don't want to die. Help me. Is anyone coming to save us? Didn't they say they were going to find rescue? Where are the rescuers? Why is there still no news after so long? Where are those police officers from just now? Right? Find the police." Although the temperature outside the car was very low, the insulation inside the car was good, and the camera was not affected, even enabling night mode. In the chaos, suddenly a few gunshots rang out. Just then, the person who was about to find the police instantly retreated from the door. "Everyone listen up. Put your stuff down immediately, and get out of this carriage one by one. Anyone who dares to take anything, I'll blow his head off." As he spoke, the muzzle pointed at the man in the first row who was clutching his bag tightly. The next second, a gunshot was heard, and blood instantly splattered onto the face of the woman next to him. The woman was so scared that she didn't even dare to make a sound. "Starting with you, leave in order, understand?" The woman, with the gun pointed at her, nodded in fear, then tremblingly got up and walked towards the rear door. Soon, people in each row walked faster and faster. Most of the remaining people got up and ran away in the confusion before the people in front had even finished walking. Zhang Xinqing slipped away at this time. Seeing that the business carriage was empty, several people began to quickly search for the supplies left behind. The food and clothes were piled up on both sides. Judging by this, it seemed like they were going to stay in this carriage for a few days, just like in the previous life. I clearly know how these people committed evil in my previous life. How could I let them get away with it so easily? I put down my chopsticks and pressed the dialogue button on the monitor. It's the end of the world, and this little bit of stuff. Is it enough for you to eat for a few days? In an instant, several people sprang up from their seats as if their fur had been ruffled. Who's talking? Big brother. Look quick. There's a camera here. Seeing the gun barrel pointed at me, I smiled and tapped the tabletop. If you want to live a little longer, I advise you not to damage this camera. The scarred man stood on his seat, carefully examining the construction of my camera. Who are you? And why did you install a camera here? I was afraid my man would cheat, so I set this up to film him specifically before I left. Who knew I'd run into this situation? Guys, I'm not in the car right now, and I have no conflict of interest with you, but I know you're trapped in the car, and my man is too. I want you to find him for me. The scarred man immediately understood something. What's that got to do with us? Why should I help you? You're trapped in the car, and in a few days you'll run out of supplies and freeze to death. But my man is in there too, and I'm not going to let my man die. Of course, I want him to live. Think about it. If you follow him, won't you all be able to live together? As if sensing that what I said made sense, the several people exchanged glances. We're trapped in the mountains right now. Where are you? My man's name is Zhang Xinqing. If you bring him here, I'll tell you my location. It's already 70 degrees Celsius further north. Luckily you're in a mountain hollow, so the temperature isn't dropping as fast. Leave quickly while it's still warm enough to go out. Otherwise, once the power system in this vehicle collapses, your place will become an outdoor natural ice coffin. After hearing this, the scarred man's face instantly became a little more serious. He immediately turned and pulled a few people away to have a small meeting in the distance. They walked a bit further away, thinking I couldn't hear them. In reality, they underestimated my hearing. Is this broad telling the truth? Bro, it's true. The news outside has been reporting it. Many places are buried. Only underground garages and bomb shelters can keep people alive. This train car of ours is all windows. Once the power system really collapses, we'll all die. Never mind. Her man is still on the train. As long as her man is in our hands, we're not afraid she's lying. Let's go. Seeing them rush towards the other carriages with guns, I finally felt at ease and continued eating my noodles. By the time I was gnawing on my third chicken wing, those people indeed dragged Zhang Xinqing in front of me. My wife. Impossible. I tried calling her, but her phone was off. I raised an eyebrow and immediately made a video call to Zhang Xinqing. As the screen lit up, a hall full of supplies immediately appeared before them. Before they could get a clear look, I switched the camera to the front and continued to gnaw on the chicken wings in front of them. Zhang Xinqing's eyes widened. Xinyan, where are you? I've been looking for you for so long. How did you get off the train by yourself? Where did you go? I looked at the man on the screen and shrugged. Our leader suddenly assigned me to transport a batch of goods. At the last stop, I saw you were sleeping so soundly that I left first. Now you see, I'm in our company's underground warehouse, not far from you. I heard it's getting really cold outside. You should get off now and come find me. With that, I sent my location. The location was marked by me on the map. When the few people opened it, they found it was a 3-kilometer walk from the train. Soon, a troubled expression appeared on their faces. It didn't seem far normally, but now with the snow outside being half a person high, those 3 kilometers were exceptionally far. I see the temperature outside is dropping again. If we don't set off soon, we won't be able to go. Zhang Xinqing, I don't care about others, but you must find me alive. There's enough food in this warehouse for us to eat for several years. Saying that, I brought the video near the crowded shelves again and showed them around. The scar-faced man sneered upon hearing this and grabbed Zhang Xinqing by the neck. What are you talking about, big sister? Don't worry, we'll definitely deliver your man to you safely. As soon as he finished speaking, the video call was hung up. Seeing the packed supplies behind me, those few people were indeed tempted. They were sure I wouldn't abandon Zhang Xinqing and immediately started packing up. On the monitor, the several people ransacked the entire carriage for clothes, and soon, even Zhang Xinqing was wrapped in a thick down jacket. Seeing that they had all wrapped themselves up like Zongzi, covered in heat packs, and carrying plenty of supplies, they then waved at the monitor and left the carriage. I watched this scene with cold eyes and turned off the monitor. After I finished eating, I washed the pots and bowls clean, then put on my cold weather coat, picked up a notebook, and started checking and recording my supplies from the cold storage upstairs. In just 2 hours, the temperature in the storage area between the first and second doors had dropped to -20 degrees Celsius. The tip of the pen scratched on the paper, and the white mist from my breath condensed into ice crystals on my eyelashes. I tightened my cold weather suit and leaned against the shelves, the beam of my flashlight sweeping over mountains of rice stacked to the cave ceiling. 10 tons of Wuchang rice from the northeast were vacuum sealed into 500 bags. Took me a full week just to transport and stack this rice. I pushed the cargo cart back and forth between the truck and the cave, stacking the rice neatly. Because the procurement was rushed, there wasn't enough time to carefully check the time and quality. As my fingertips brushed over the production date code on the woven bag, the waterproof ink was still clearly visible at low temperatures. These were purchased in batches from 3 different granaries. Even if one batch was messed up and had a small problem, it wouldn't be a total loss. After all, what's stored here will likely not be eaten for several years. After recording the rice, I turned to look at the steel shelves. Among them, 100 lambs, 100 black pigs, and 100 cattle were all neatly hung on the sliding rails, with quarantine tags attached to each hind leg. These are not the materials that will be used first. In the large freezers below, various cuts of meat have long been stored, with each type in its own freezer, making them convenient to access. Only when the meat in the freezers below is finished will new cuts be taken from the sliding rails for processing and storage. These meats alone took up more than half of the space here, and the remaining corners were used by me to store seafood. 50 frozen tuna, 50 frozen salmon, and 50 cod were neatly stacked on wooden shelves. Upon closer inspection, one could even see ice crystals of seawater still clinging to their eyes. These items are expensive, so I didn't hoard too much, as being able to eat seafood is already a luxury enough for the apocalypse. Besides fish, I also bought some sea crabs, sea shrimp, squid, and shellfish, which I stacked in the cargo boxes beside me one by one. After recording the quantities separately, I left the cold ice cellar. For convenience of entry and exit, I placed an entryway cabinet behind the second large door, specifically for storing cold weather clothing and protective gear. Every time I enter or exit, I just need to hang these back. As the second large door closed, the phone placed on the entryway cabinet had been buzzing for a long time. Upon opening it, I found that Zhang Xinqing had already called 20 times and missed the video calls. You've got some nerve. The phone still has power after walking out for 20 minutes. I picked up my phone and immediately called him back via video. He took a long time to answer. How far have you gone? Haven't you arrived yet? Xinyan, why don't you come pick us up? Too cold outside. The phone is about to die. In the video, Zhang Xinqing and those murderers had walked less than 800 meters from the train, and the train behind them was still lit with warm light. The train's lights were still on, which meant the temperature hadn't dropped below 50 degrees Celsius. I'm already outside. See, I put on my clothes, I said, patting the cold weather suit I was wearing. Xinqing, both of us studied science in college. You should know that the power system on the train will collapse around 50 degrees Celsius. Since the train's lights are still on, it means you still have a chance. Let's not give up. Okay. As a cold wind blew, the man behind Zhang Xinqing caught up. Give me your phone. What did she say? She said the vehicle's power system will collapse at around -50 degrees Celsius. This means that as long as the train lights are still on, the temperature isn't that low yet. We need to get to her before the train lights go out. In the Jingtou camera shot lens, I was all bundled up in a cold weather suit. I'm coming to pick you up right now. Remember, you must cross this mountain. I'm rushing up the mountain. We're very close. The hot pot is ready. I can't eat it all by myself. When you get here, take a good hot bath first. Then we'll eat hot pot together. Seeing this, the scarred man looked back at the train. After all, they had come so far. If they turned back now, all their efforts would be in vain. He gritted his teeth and beckoned a few people to pull Zhang Xinqing out of the snow. Let's go. Keep going. We'll find your wife together. Hot pot. Hot bath. After hanging up the phone again, I took off my cold weather suit with a cold laugh, then picked up my notebook and walked downstairs. I had filled the lobby with shelves, categorized by type. Reaching the titanium alloy cabinets next to the first row of shelves, I revealed 12 acrylic partition boxes. Inside box No. 1, 3,000 composite vitamin tablets were sorted by color. Orange, yellow was VC, light green was folic acid, and pale pink was collagen. Box number 2 contains 500 bottles of zinc gluconate oral solution, and box number 3 has some common fever reducers and anti-inflammatory drugs. Box number 4 is for various dermatological drugs, as well as antihistamines. Counting them one by one, the 12 boxes list almost every type of medicine imaginable. These items were bought for emergencies, with a shelf life of 3 years. If it's still not warmer outside after 3 years, we'll at least have food reserves. But if we get sick, everything will be up to fate. Walking to the wall in the hall, I opened the pressure-sealed box. The 50 barrels of kerosene I dragged from the gas station are all stored in this explosion-proof cabinet. Next to them are 20 sets of solar panels, and beside the electrical room upstairs is a backup diesel generator covered with a cloth. These are the energy reserves for this cave. In the days to come, besides necessary lighting and some small appliances, there won't be much need for electricity. After all, the most power-consuming heating equipment has been replaced by geothermal energy, and there's no need for electricity for cooling. I continued to pick up the notebook and record the goods in the hall one by one. Every data recorded here will be compiled into an electronic spreadsheet, so that I can see the consumption status of the items each time I use them. Actually, when I bought the items, all of them were recorded. This time is just a re-inventory, in case I missed something. After I finished recording the supplies in the hall, I passed through the doorway on the right and entered the corridor leading to the hot spring pool. The original Starlight Cinema Room, KTV Room, and Mahjong Room have all been converted into storage rooms by me. One for storing daily hygiene products, one for storing beverages and purified water, and another one specifically for storing feed, seeds, and organic soil. As for the other sauna and steam rooms, they couldn't store anything due to the geothermal issues. Instead, they could be used as greenhouses. And rice and wheat are my first batch of experimental subjects. Both rice and wheat are crops with strong photosynthesis. As long as they are provided with sufficient light and good ventilation, they can grow normally. Moreover, indoor planting can avoid the influence of weather, greatly improving the stability of the harvest. I placed artificial sunlight lamps on the roof, simulating a 24-hour outdoor sunlight system. Ventilation ducts were also installed in these 2 rooms, exchanging air with the open-air cave next door every day. This way, this will also be the most electricity-consuming place in the entire cave in the future. Leaving these last 2 rooms, my gaze fell on the last door. Behind this door will be the only place where I can interact with the outside world. I rubbed the material topological map I had drawn on the cover of my notebook, suddenly thinking of the days at the end of last year when I was at home holding coffee and making year-end PPTs. At that time, I thought the performance on the PPT was my future. But now, the numbers I just recorded in the notebook are. I put on my jacket and pushed open that big door with a shove. As a gust of cold wind blew in, I looked up and saw the howling wind outside the cave tearing at the night sky at -70 degrees Celsius. System recognizes owner has entered the open air area and has automatically turned on the lights. Open air area temperature 15 degrees Celsius. Humidity 30%. Wind force less than level 1. Recommended clothing, hoodie. As the lights around the cave lit up, the scene inside the cave instantly came into view. The 2 cows lying in the corner didn't react to the light, but the 2 sheep nearby were a bit timid. When I left, the food troughs for these livestock were full. Now they were all empty. I took out some fresh, tender pasture from the feed shed I had prepared earlier. Seeing that none of them rushed to eat, I went into the chicken coop to check. The 30 chickens that had been settled in earlier were all nestled comfortably on their straw mats, and there was still more than half of the automatic feeder left. This shows that the system has indeed been feeding on time during this period, and I was relieved. Looking up, I could vaguely see a few stars through the bowl. sized whole dozens of meters above my head. It seems the snow had stopped a long time ago, although the opening overhead looks small. Sunlight can penetrate from noon to afternoon, illuminating half of the cave. Roughly estimated, there are at least 6 hours of sunlight. Directly below, I had also set up a planting area where I had planted some vegetables. Scallions, cilantro, lettuce, spinach, celery. I planted all the vegetable seeds that can withstand low temperatures. And all around these vegetables are the ryegrass I transplanted from the grassland. This grass is highly adaptable, can grow in low temperature environments, and can survive even in harsh conditions, making it a high-quality forage grass. I bent down, grabbed a handful of soil and rubbed it, noticing it was still a bit damp, and remembered it was probably because of the snow during the day, because the surrounding rocks provide a continuous supply of heat. Even wind at -70°C weakens, let alone the heavy snow, the dozens of meters of cave height turning into rain as it comes down. I picked up the shovel placed next to the rock wall, went directly to the livestock pen and shoveled out the manure, piled it all into the special compost pool, then added an appropriate amount of nitrogen, fixing agent, covered it with a layer of soil, and finally covered it with plastic, waiting for it to ferment into organic fertilizer. After finishing my chores, I tidied up and left the cave. When I returned to the villa area, Zhang Xinqing's message finally came through. However, this time there were only 2 missed calls and 1 voice message. Xinyan, where are you? My phone died. I took out all my heat packs and put them on, before turning it back on. Where are you guys? As I replied to the message, I opened the computer monitoring and discovered that the power system in the carriage had already collapsed. Under the night vision camera, the business car was pitch black, and occasionally a few people could be seen fumbling around. It's already so cold. As a voice message popped up on my phone, I tapped it and heard Scarface's voice. We reached the mountaintop. Didn't see you. Where the hell are you? As soon as I finished listening to this, a video call request came from the other side the next second. I opened it. When Scarface saw the luxurious villa area behind me and that I was still wearing short sleeves, his eyes widened in disbelief. You didn't go out. You lied to us. As he spoke, Scarface shoved the video close to Zhang Xinqing, who was already almost frozen unconscious. Wake up. What's going on? Your wife didn't even go out. Wife, seeing Zhang Xinqing's lips already purple and blue from the cold, and frost on his eyelids. In an instant, scenes from my past life flashed before my eyes again. Back then, I was just like him now. No, back then I didn't even have a down jacket. They threw me out of the car. No matter how I pounded on the car door, Zhang Xinqing acted as if he didn't see me. He was holding another woman, watching me with a look of indifference as I froze to death right in front of him. Without even a flicker of emotion. Your man is still in our hands. Don't you want his life? If you don't come out now, he'll really freeze to death. Scarface's voice kept coming from the video call. I snapped back to reality. My gaze fell on the other side of the video. I sighed and said coldly, you think his worthless life is worth anything? What did you say? Zhang Xinqing, want to know how your old dad and mom are doing now? As I spoke, I sent a 10-second short video. After all, if it were too long, I was afraid they wouldn't receive it and would turn off their phones. Seeing his old house set ablaze by cotton, and then the scene cutting off at the moment of collapse. Zhang Xinqing finally reacted. Dad, Mom, Xinwu, Xinyan, it's you. You planned this, didn't you? We're about to get married. Why are you doing this to us? Do you even have a conscience? Conscience? What is conscience? Is it more important than life? I casually said as if nothing happened. Zhang Xinqing, do you still remember the amount on that insurance policy? What insura? Zhang Xinqing paused for a moment, seeming to finally understand everything. He tried to argue, but was roughly pulled aside by the scarred man and trampled in the snow. Damn it, you two lovebirds want to die or live, and you got me played too. Strip this guy naked, take off your clothes and put them on. Damn it, hurry back to the train, there's still a chance. As the phone was thrown aside, Zhang Xinqing's curses and wails immediately came from the video. However, after only a few seconds of wailing, the video completely cut off. I closed my phone and my gaze fell on the surveillance. looking at people still walking below, who looked like the previous attendants. I immediately pressed the call button. "Hello, is anyone alive?" The flight attendant was startled and quickly looked around. "Who's talking?" "This is the control room. We've already sent people to rescue you." "Really? How much longer?" "We here right now." To make a long story short, I tricked the group with guns off the train. Now they've realized something's wrong and are rushing back. "If you want to live, hurry up and lock the train doors. Otherwise, when they get back, you'll all die." After I finished speaking, the person froze for a moment, then, as if rekindling the hope of survival, immediately shouted to a few people in the carriage to rush towards the train doors. Seeing that there was no one left in the carriage, I then turned off the camera. This was all I could do, giving them hope, hoping they could hold on to this last bit of faith to survive. And from now on, the only ones who can help them are themselves. System, report the outdoor temperature. Okay, master, the current outdoor temperature is minus 70 degrees Celsius. Safety level, dangerous. My heart tightened, and then I exhaled a long breath. The apocalypse has finally arrived. After dealing with Zhang Xinqing and the group of murderers on the train, I returned to my bedroom on the second floor and slept for a day and a night in a daze. These past 3 months have been too exhausting for me. I really needed to replenish my energy. However, this one day and one night of sleep seemed so insignificant in the long years of the apocalypse, because I found that as long as I wanted to, I could lie in bed every day and sleep as long as I wanted. The first 3 months were the most nerve-wracking. The words I spoke to the survivors on the train that day, I actually had some hope in them, although in my past life I only lived for 3 months. But what if, after 3 months, rescue would finally come? Even though I've sacrificed so much, planned and arranged everything, but I still hoped someone would come to the rescue, hoping these 3 months were just a brief cold snap. As long as we can get through it, the world will return to order. Money lost can be earned again, but if the cold snap continues endlessly, then sooner or later, the fate of the people on the train will also be my fate. However, after 3 months, no hope arrived. There were fewer and fewer messages on my phone, and the signal grew weaker and weaker. During this time, every night I watched the popular survival novels I had downloaded earlier, like The Zombie Apocalypse is Here. The heroine first hoarded hundreds of boxes of instant noodles. Or, The Zombie Apocalypse is Here, and How the Heroine Fought Zombies. But the reality now is that not only are there no zombies on the streets, but the streets themselves are buried under heavy snow. Among the few signals, the scattered messages indicated that most survivors were hiding in basements, cellars, and other enclosed spaces, but everyone knew that no one could hold out for too long. After 3 months, there were no new messages from the world. The phone was like it was scrapped. Besides using it to read novels or watch videos of planting vegetables and raising cattle and sheep, it had almost no other use. The morning of the 4th month after the apocalypse, I put on my sunglasses as usual, opened the villa window, and the sunlight from outside was immediately reflected into the room by the overwhelming white snow. Above that snow-capped mountain, a deep blue suddenly appeared, making people involuntarily lower half their sunglasses to examine it closely. Before the apocalypse, I had hardly ever seen such an unrealistically blue sky. Under the azure sky, everything was covered in white snow, and even the roofs of the small Western-style houses were no longer visible. Now, looking from the window, I don't feel like I'm living on a mountainside, but rather in a plain covered in white snow. The sun is so strong, won't the snow melt at all? As it approached noon, I took a steak out of the refrigerator, threw a few cloves of garlic into the hot oil, and then tossed in the thawed beef, searing the steak over high heat until it sizzled and rendered oil. Then I leaned aside, bored, and started checking my phone for signal, hoping for at least one bar. System, report the outdoor temperature. Yes, master, the current outdoor temperature is minus 70 degrees Celsius. Safety level, dangerous. After the system reported, I subconsciously glanced at the blue sky outside again, and instantly felt that it looked increasingly strange. I decided not to dwell on the outdoor scenery anymore, and after eating, I started my work for the day again. Any supplies that haven't been used don't need to be inspected again. And the snacks, daily necessities, water, and rice that have been consumed over the past 4 months have all been adjusted by me one by one in the system's table. Since my daily exercise amount isn't much, I don't consume a lot of food. To make life less boring and dull, I've scheduled my daily routine: exercise in the morning, then feed the fish, observe the growth of rice and wheat in the morning, and watch a movie during lunch. In the afternoon, I focus for 3 hours on learning a skill, then do an 8-section brocade routine. After dinner, I check the circuits in the entire cave and digest my food. Besides that, I assign myself a thorough cleaning of an area each week. And today is finally the open-air cave's turn. The temperature in the open-air cave stays around 18 degrees Celsius during the day and drops to 15 degrees Celsius in the evening. This temperature is much higher than I expected, most likely because it gets sunlight every day, and the cold air gets heated up and evaporated halfway down. Since I keep living things here, I come over to check on them every day, even if I'm not cleaning, to prevent foul plague. The chicken coop is the most frequently cleaned area, almost once a week. The cowshed and sheep pen are cleaned every half-month, mainly for composting. For this thorough cleaning, I directly chased the chickens out, blasted the entire coop with a high-temperature water gun, and finally, after the steam evaporated, I sprinkled a circle of quicklime powder to ensure disinfection. All the wastewater produced was directly flushed down the drain. I had noticed before that not only is there a bathroom in the villa area, but a sewage pipe has also been built on the left side of the cave, which looks like it's intended for a future bathroom. I didn't waste it either. I just poured the wastewater directly here. The only thing I haven't figured out in this cave is the source and destination of the water, and I'm worried about drinking water problems, so I installed a pre-filter and a water purifier. As for the destination, let it be. It hasn't been blocked for 4 months, so who cares where it goes? It's the apocalypse. Let's not talk about environmental protection. The days of hiding in the cave passed one by one, and just when I really thought I was the only living person left in the world, suddenly one day, while I was getting salmon from the cold storage, I heard a sound from the big truck behind me. I was really scared shitless. It's been 5 months, and the cold storage has been kept at a constant temperature of -20 degrees Celsius. How can there still be living things in the big truck? It's not like this cave is haunted, right? What was this ghost doing before? I chanted amidst while cursing loudly, intending to drive away the dirty things. However, as I got closer to the source of the sound, I realized that the sound was not coming from the carriage, but from the driver's seat. My heart jumped into my throat. I turned and ran, closed the door tightly, and then quickly ran back to my bedroom. Along the way, I closed at least 3 doors. After returning to my bedroom, I immediately turned on my computer and activated all the surveillance cameras in all the spaces. I installed these when I left, just in case thieves broke in to steal things. I stared intently at every area in the video, other than the cattle and sheep pacing back and forth in the cave and a flickering, deflated light tube above the rice paddies in the greenhouse. There was nothing unusual in any other room, and the freezer where the sound came from was pitch black at this time, and the night vision camera showed nothing either. But even if it was something sinister, the camera probably couldn't capture it. I shivered. Then my gaze fell on the black safe under the bedside table. After thinking for a long time, I finally sighed and went forward to open it with my fingerprint. I had long anticipated that once this place was discovered, I would have to fight for my life, so I had to stockpile necessary weapons and equipment. This isn't like abroad. Getting firearms is not an easy thing at all, and the Luger SR-22 pistol lying in this black box was bought through a friend's connections using my ties in the logistics industry. This gun isn't expensive. It's only 4,000 or 5,000 yuan abroad, but the price quadrupled once it got into the country. It doesn't matter. When the apocalypse comes, how many people will be left in the world? Times like this, the currency system would have long collapsed, and even if I went out, money would be worthless. I took the gun out of the black box, loaded the bullets, and cocked the safety. Then I found a safety helmet to wear, and strapped an oven tray I took from the oven onto my chest, in case something really came out of that big truck. These things might offer some protection. With all the gear ready, I put on my thermal suit again and opened the cold storage door. As the lights in the cold storage came on fully, I approached the big truck step by step, holding my gun. The second I was about to open the truck door, that voice suddenly reappeared. Says, hello, hello, says, anyone there? I was so scared that I fired a shot directly at the door, and the huge sound instantly echoed throughout the entire cold storage. The truck's door was hit by the bullet and opened by itself, but what I didn't expect was that what appeared before me was actually a walkie-talkie hanging in mid. I froze. A walkie-talkie, right? How could I forget? There's a wireless walkie-talkie on this truck. Says, hello, anyone, says, anyone, says, for a moment, I could hardly believe my ears. I quickly climbed up, picked up the walkie-talkie, and started talking. Hello, is this the rescue team? Where are you? Can you hear me? As soon as I finished speaking, the voice on the other side went silent. A moment of immense surprise washed over me. Holding the walkie-talkie, I was about to reply again when my gaze fell on my gun, and I paused abruptly. Wait, it's the 5th month of the apocalypse, and the outdoor temperature is still minus 70 degrees Celsius. If rescue personnel could search and rescue in this kind of weather, they would have arrived long ago. So why are they showing up now? Says, hello, where, says, are you, says, as the voice came again, my heart sank. No, if it were a search and rescue team, they would definitely announce themselves first, not just ask where I am. Who are you, says? Should, says, be, near, you, near me. I jumped in surprise, immediately put down the walkie-talkie, and looked up to ask the system, report the situation outside. Yes, master. The outdoor temperature is minus 70 degrees Celsius. The main gate is frozen shut, and no life signs were detected 5 kilometers outside the gate. No one. Then how could he be near me? Says, I'm using the truck's, says, walkie-talkie, says, the truck's walkie-talkie, truck. Almost instantly, I remembered the large truck that had been following me 5 months ago on the mountain road. Could it be him? Just as I was about to ask further, in the next second, I heard him continue speaking. Someone is approaching your cave, says. Be careful. That sentence almost made my soul leave my body. The scariest thing in this world, probably more so than ghosts, is a survivor suddenly appearing on a truck's walkie-talkie to tell you someone is approaching your cave. Is this even livable anymore? Quickly, dismantle the walkie-talkie, says, take to an open area. He knows I have an outdoor cave. Good heavens, who is this person? He wouldn't have installed surveillance in my cave, would he? Hearing this, I didn't hesitate any longer and immediately took action. After all, I couldn't hear clearly here, and it was too cold. I immediately found a screwdriver and started disassembling the walkie-talkie, ensuring all wires were intact. I removed the walkie-talkie from the car, then immediately ran with it to an open-air cave and connected it to power. Hello, are you still there? Hello, I asked for a long time in the cave. Just as I was about to think the walkie-talkie was broken, a crisp voice finally came from the other side. Sis, I am. Who are you? How did you know someone was approaching me? Sis, I saw. Where did he see it? Sis, I'm on the mountain next to you. The next mountain. There's another mountain next door. Then, those people. Sis, don't worry. It's okay now. No, dude, don't scare me like that. How can there be people out here in this cold weather? Sis, there are many hot spring mountains in this area, so there are quite a few people who can hide in them. The peak of your mountain has been smoking continuously, so people have been rushing towards you one after another, risking their lives. Those few words sent a chill down my spine. Smoking. Someone has been coming towards me. I slowly raised my head and looked at the bowl-sized opening above me. So for these 4 months, I thought everyone outside had died off. Turns out people have been heading in my direction all along, and this seemingly small opening has actually been emitting smoke every day. But I couldn't see it myself. Then what do you mean it's okay now? Did they freeze to death? Sizzle. Hey, are you still there, bro? Sizzle. I just took a look, and that group of people fell down too. Fell down, and what do you mean? Sizzle. You should be glad that behind the mountain you chose, there's a cliff. Everyone who went looking for you was tricked by the heavy snow and fell off the cliff. listening to the man's words. I took a sharp breath. Sizzle, sizzle. I tried to contact you for 4 months, thinking you were dead. How did you know I existed? Sizzle, sizzle. I've been hauling goods these past few months too. I just didn't expect you to go into the mountains on the last day. Originally, I planned to follow your truck until the end to confirm where you went, but you were too vigilant, so I bypassed you and returned to my own mountain. Sizzle, sizzle. Are you still there? Sizzle, sizzle. Hey. Still here, buddy. Let's sort this out properly. Sizzle, sizzle. Alright. Through the conversation, I learned that this person's name was Zhong Han, a graduate student majoring in atmospheric physics. He was the first to discover the weather anomaly, even predicting the exact month of the cold current's arrival half a year in advance. However, his advisor dismissed it, as this cold current was no secret in the Meteorological Society, and more senior academicians believed it would be dissipated by a strong warm current. But Zhong Han had gone through thousands of simulations, and hadn't even found a cold current of this exact scale in many years. He speculated that this cold current's appearance wouldn't be dispersed by any warm currents, and might even form widespread, long-lasting snowfall during convection. This was unprecedented in history, let alone his prediction being for the Spring Festival. It's the time when everyone returns home for reunion. If the higher UPS were to find out about this, it would be fine if his prediction was right, but if it was wrong, it would be something that caused widespread public grievance and wasted money and manpower. Because of this, his prediction was directly rejected. As the date gradually approached, Zhong Han saw that no one believed him. Even his advisor thought he had gone crazy trying to graduate. There was no choice. He had to save himself. Zhong Han's hometown is near this county. Like me, he carefully studied the terrain and mountains, and found that the mountains here have geothermal layers. So he came to investigate for a long time. According to him, during his investigation, he also met me near a local travel agency. At that time, he didn't suspect anything. However, when he chose a cave and ordered goods from major suppliers, he was told that someone else had also ordered a lot of goods to be sent to this county, and he even had to wait an extra week for it. It was then that he realized someone was doing the same thing as him. Zhong Han didn't alert him. Instead, he followed my lead and ordered supplies. Whatever I bought, he bought the same amount. In the end, he discovered that I was really damn rich, and he was really damn poor. Zhong Han is an orphan who lost his parents at a young age. He relied on social welfare and scholarships to get to where he is now. But Zhong Han is very smart. He knew he was taking a huge gamble. So within a month, he managed to turn himself into a defaulter by taking out online loans and credit. I asked him how much he borrowed in the end. He pursed his lips and thought for a long time, then told me he borrowed 20 million. He said it wasn't difficult, just opening his mouth and shaking his head. I'm really impressed. Impressed that he's a ruthless person. Did you ever think about what you'd do if the cold snap only lasted a few days or months? No, still quite confident. Zhong Han's location is about 5 kilometers from me, another 3 kilometers past the fork in the road I saw that day. He said that the county magistrate had multiple hideouts, and had built several of these caves. My cave was the last one to be sealed off, and they hadn't managed to move everything out yet. His cave had been built a year ago, and people had even lived in it several times. By the time he discovered it, it was also sealed, and everything except the basic structure was gone, let alone a color TV. And although he didn't have an open-air cave, his villa had 4 floors. The highest level had a 180-degree floor-to-ceiling viewing window on the side, which offered a direct view of my smoking mountaintop. And behind the mountaintop, the 3rd cave dug by the county magistrate. However, that 3rd cave was actually a scenic spot. It's likely that quite a few employees stayed behind and didn't go home, and they ended up surviving there, turning misfortune into good fortune. But because they had no food or water, when they saw smoke constantly rising from my mountain, they risked their lives and rushed to find me. It's a shame that although the distance was very, very close, there was a huge fault between the 2 mountains, covered in white snow, so no one could see it. Everyone thought they could climb up and find me, but they didn't expect that before freezing to death. They all died at the bottom of the cliff. Speaking of which, both he and I fell silent. It's not right to say this is happy, and it's absolutely impossible to say it's regrettable. I can only say that I was lucky enough. Zhong Han said that the 180-degree flat floor on his rooftop cannot be accessed frequently, as the temperature there is close to minus 30 degrees Celsius, even lower than the temperature in my cold storage. He occasionally went up to try communicating via walkie-talkie because he knew I was alive. I was a little surprised. Logically, since he followed my order, he should have taken insulation measures. Upon closer inspection, turned out that he didn't insulate the windows. After all, it was a 180-degree floor to ceiling window, and transportation and labor were troublesome. He simply thickened and sealed the ceiling. This way, when he needed to check the situation, he would go up, which is why he disappeared for a while every time we talked. With Zhong Han around, my boring life has become a bit more interesting. At least I have a neighbor, which is better than talking to cows every day, because I didn't fully master my order list, and he didn't have open air conditions. Zhong Han's later supply orders differed significantly from mine. For example, he never considered raising cattle and sheep or growing vegetables, but he stocked up on a lot of vitamins like me, which is considered some supplementation for his body's necessary nutrient intake. He also bought a lot of frozen meat with me, but he can't cook, which is the biggest problem. So until now, he's barely touched that rice, flour, oil, and meat. May I ask, how did you survive these 5 months? After a brief pause, the man said lightly, instant noodles. Luckily, I stocked up on 500 boxes of instant noodles. Didn't this save his dog's life? What else did you stock up on? Electricity. I need to constantly analyze the weather, so I need to build a complete set of equipment in the cave to receive cloud maps transmitted by satellites. The machines consume a lot of electricity, so I bought many hydraulic generators. Using the concentrated power generation from the temperature difference of hot springs in the cave can be like this. Then what were my diesel fuels for? Was it because I was uneducated? No, the Earth is at its end. Are satellites still working? The Earth is at its end. What does that have to do with satellites in space? Makes sense. Then, great meteorologist, please tell me, through your observations, is the Earth still salvageable? Not necessarily. Further observation is needed. If necessary, I need to go out and observe. My mouth twitched, and while shoveling dung in the cattle shed, I glanced at the blue sky above. No need, really no need, unless you're starving to death. It's best to stay in the cave. Do you have things to do every day? I have nothing else to do but study cloud charts. Of course I have a lot to do, like keeping track of consumables, checking circuits, working out, cooking, learning a skill, watching a movie, farming, and shoveling manure from the cowshed, and then piling up the manure. Why pile up cow dung? Man, you came from the county town. Haven't you ever done any farm work? No, I was a top student from elementary school, and the first in the experimental class all the way to the college entrance examination. Teachers told me that as long as I studied hard, I didn't need to worry about anything else, and the school would solve my financial problems. Fine, he won. This is basically no external knowledge outside of his major subjects. You're so idle. I even want you to come and shovel cow dung for me. These cows eat a lot and poop a lot. If I don't pile up the dung, it's no good. It's so annoying. So, why do you pile up cow dung? So on this day, I explained to the great physics graduate student Zhong Han why animal manure can be turned into organic fertilizer through composting. I was so parched from explaining that I had to drink a bottle of ice Coke to recover. There was a long silence from the other end of the walkie-talkie, and Zhong Han then said in a calm tone, "Understood." So the composting process is a biochemical process where organic matter is degraded and converted into stable humus through biochemical reactions such as hydrolysis, oxidation, ammoniation, and nitrification under the action of microorganisms. Is this understanding correct? Yes. Zhong Han's voice sounds indifferent, but he's actually quite warm-hearted. For example, he calmly told me that someone was looking for me at first, and for example, he has been persistently passing messages to me for months, to return a favor, and to find something to do. I decided to start teaching him how to cook, and also to save his scrawny body. Although I can't see it, I can probably guess how scrawny a man who's been eating instant noodles for 5 months would be. It wasn't until the 15th day of teaching Zhonghan to cook that Zhonghan finally lasted an extra minute in a room with a temperature of -30 degrees Celsius. He doesn't even need to sit on the stairs to rest anymore when climbing them. And in the 3rd month of me teaching him to cook, Zhonghan could already stay on the top floor for 30 minutes. It's not that he's that obsessed with the 180-degree viewing platform, nor that he really wants to see where I am. Instead, he can observe atmospheric phenomena more directly through the glass. The world covered by heavy snow is all white, and only the white smoke rising from the top of the cave where I am can show the wind direction. And he wants to record the wind direction trends as much as possible every day, because he said that in reality, since the day the doomsday cold current arrived, the cloud maps transmitted by satellites have been almost cloudless, so he couldn't observe them at all, which is why he wanted to go out, even if it was to feel it with his own body. But that's simply a pipe dream. He'd be frozen into a popsicle within a minute of going out. God knows what those people who worked so hard to find me were thinking. And now he can see the wind direction through the white smoke on my side, which is more useful than satellite cloud maps. After I watered the lettuce, I looked up at the bowl-sized hole above my head, and I didn't understand what could be seen from a ball of white smoke. Zhonghan said, "If there's wind, it means there's change. A little change can affect countless observation results. It's like the butterfly effect." Epilogue. The 3rd year after the apocalypse. Early morning. Xinyan was woken up by the voice on the walkie-talkie. "Xinyan, wake up. What's the noise? Is the rescue here? Let me sleep a bit longer if not. The snow has melted." "What did you say?" Xinyan instinctively rolled over and got up before even opening her eyes, then rubbed her eyes and rushed downstairs to open the window. However, it was still a vast expanse of white outside, almost blinding her. "Melted where? Isn't it all snow?" "No, look closely. The snow level has dropped by 2 centimeters. Xinyan frowned, unaware that Zhonghan, on the neighboring mountain, had been staring at a measured line he'd drawn with a marker pen on the floor. To ceiling window. When the snow first covered the window at 30 centimeters, he drew a line 30 centimeters long, until this morning, when he walked up to the 4th floor again and found that 2 centimeters of the snow had melted. In that moment, Zhonghan subconsciously looked up and saw the white smoke rising from the distant mountaintop. He knew that the wind stirred by the butterfly's wings had finally yielded results. In the spring of the 4th year of the apocalypse, the snow line dropped by 5 centimeters. Xinyan asked the system for the outdoor temperature, and the system replied that the outdoor temperature was -60 degrees Celsius. In other words, in a few years, the outdoor temperature could rise to -40 degrees Celsius. At that temperature, they could come out of the cave. In the summer of the 5th year of the apocalypse, 2 cows gave birth to a calf. Xinyan was happy for 3 days. That day, she filled its feeding trough with fresh grass. To celebrate, she even told Zhonghan the good news while going to the chicken coop to get 3 eggs to make herself a cake, rewarding herself for her meticulous care of the livestock over the years. The rice and wheat had grown countless crops, and even the lamps had gone out 3 or 4 times. Fortunately, she had plenty of spare lamps and managed to get through it. "Zhonghan, do you think there are any living people left in the world now?" "Not many people can survive until now. I guess, if the temperature goes back up, what's the first thing you want to do? Have a McDonald's meal. Can you be a bit more ambitious? It's the apocalypse. Where would you find McDonald's? Then there's none. I'm serious. If the snow really melts, shouldn't we go down the mountain to find some supplies? I have enough supplies to eat. Over the years, many of the bulbs I used for cultivation have broken, and I need to find some new ones. By the way, you mentioned that research instrument. I remember there's a meteorological college in the neighboring county, which was also a key national project. I wonder if they have any instruments for meteorological observation. I'll go see if the truck can still be driven." Hearing the silence from the other side, Xinyan smiled, then opened the rice cultivation video saved on her computer. If the snow melts, then the fields and crops should be able to be planted again under the sun. It was spring in the 8th year of the apocalypse, and Xinyan, unusually, made dumplings. Hearing the crackling sound from the walkie-talkie, Xinyan pressed it. "Where are you?" Steady, steady, don't step on mines. At the door, Xinyan put the dumplings into the pot, then washed her hands and got up to go to her cold storage. Back then, she had used a truck to block the door, and fortunately, she reacted quickly and drove the truck forward more than 10 meters. Otherwise, if she really needed to open the door one day, she would have blocked herself in the cave. As a basin of hot water was poured onto the hinges of the large iron door, a basin of hot water was poured onto the center of the door. With a creak, the large iron door that had been closed for 8 years was finally reopened. Dust flew everywhere for a moment. Cough, cough, cough. It hasn't been used for so many years. It's all dust. Xinyan fanned away the dust, then looked through the dust at the large, heavily wrapped figure in the snow outside the door. Zhonghan, Seeing the person standing awkwardly outside the door, Xinyan stepped forward and pulled them in. It's minus 40 degrees Celsius outside. What are you standing there foolishly for? Come in. Do you want to freeze me to death? As Xinyan called out, Zhonghan quickly walked a few steps closer. This was actually not his first time seeing Xinyan. 8 years had passed since the last time. Even though they had known each other for 8 years, he still felt as awkward as if they had just met. As the scarf was unwrapped layer by layer, Xinyan looked at Zhonghan's delicate face and gasped, "Zhonghan, I've seen you before." Zhonghan was taken aback. Xinyan had seen him, back then, at a travel agency in the county town. Amidst the vast crowd, she had casually turned her head and glanced. At that time, a tall boy, carrying a backpack, was looking around blankly. He had also turned his head and casually glanced at her. In the spring of the 10th year after the apocalypse, the outdoor temperature had risen to minus 20 degrees Celsius. Due to the dropping temperatures in the past 2 years, Xinyan and Zhonghan had begun to have frequent friendly meetings. The specific content included Xinyan tempting Zhonghan with fried chicken to shovel cow dung for her, and Xinyan tempting Zhonghan with homemade McSpicy chicken burgers to shovel the snow in front of her door. Zhonghan's formerly thin physique had become much sturdier over the past 2 years under Xinyan's supervision. Xinyan believed that in a short while, he would be able to clear all the snow on the mountain. In the summer of the 10th year after the apocalypse, the outdoor temperature finally rose to minus 18 degrees Celsius. Zhonghan and Xinyan tinkered with the signal tower for a long time, but in the end, they didn't receive any messages. Zhonghan was originally thinking about whether he should go and see if the people in the third cave were still alive. However, Xinyan, who had experienced that life on the train, immediately and sternly stopped his idea. Xinyan knew that Zhonghan definitely wouldn't understand why, so she told him everything that had happened in her previous life by telling him a story. Zhonghan looked at Xinyan, frowning. "So, because you died outside the train that time, you are now clairvoyant and ran into the mountains to hoard supplies." Xinyan choked. Zhonghan always had a knack for seeing through things. She didn't want to bring up the past again, and in any case, she was absolutely unwilling to look for survivors. Zhonghan finally understood what she was afraid of. In the extreme conditions of the apocalypse, unlike them who had food and drink, those survivors might not even be able to maintain their humanity. In case of extreme weather again, the two finally decided to go to the meteorology department to find equipment first, and then go to the county town to find some supplies. Xinyan's truck had been frozen for so many years that many parts had become brittle and could no longer be driven. But there was still a lot of diesel left. Zhonghan directly drove the truck into the geothermal cave. He occasionally started it up over the years, so the truck didn't have many major problems until now. After filling it with gasoline, the two headed straight down the mountain. The towns under the melting snow water were still the same, but they didn't dare to enter many of the open places. They only pried open the locked hardware store and went into the supermarket to find some supplies. Fortunately, it was during the spring festival, and the academy had already closed for the holiday, so there was no one in the school laboratories. In the end, the two dragged a lot of equipment from the lab back to the car. By the time they returned to the cave, it was already dark. They had originally thought that the temperature would get warmer and warmer, but as Zhonghan continued his observations and research, he quickly reached a bad conclusion. The cold wave was periodic. He didn't know what caused this cold current to form suddenly, but based on the limited observational data, It was like an ebb tide before a tsunami hit. After a few years of great warming, extreme cold would descend again. If there were any survivors, they would most likely all perish here. Xinyan's face turned pale after hearing this. But because the signal tower still had no signal, they couldn't transmit this information at all, nor could they save anyone. Zhonghan, this time, how confident are you? I don't know. Then, just like last time, will you hide again this time? Zhonghan was stunned, then nodded without hesitation. Yes. Xinyan let out a breath, then patted his shoulder. Last time we relied on luck. This time, we can only rely on you. Only this time. Who knows how many years it will be. But fortunately, God didn't give people no chance to breathe. They still had ample time for supplies, in order to survive the endless winter days ahead. Xinyan took Zhonghan away from the county town to the nearest logistics base to replenish supplies. The two walked for a month, witnessing many tragic scenes, and also encountering living people. However, those people looked fierce and didn't seem like easygoing folks. Although Xinyan carried a gun, he barely dared to directly contact the other party and took Zhonghan to change places. And the other party saw their truck and didn't pester them. I didn't move, just stared at the dilapidated roof beams and the big red window decorations pasted on the window. My thoughts in a mess. Fortunately, they found another truck. The two found a gas station and spent a long time pumping out the oil. Finally, the two returned to the mountains in the dark with a truckload of diesel and a truckload of supplies. As the global temperature dropped again, Xinyan and Zhonghan, each driving a large truck, stood at the fork in the road. The two looked at each other and smiled knowingly. It wasn't that Xinyan and Zhonghan hadn't thought about whether to team up, but Zhonghan's mountain could see white smoke and observe the high altitude, and Xinyan's mountain could raise cattle and sheep and grow vegetable plots. Xinyan pursued a life after the apocalypse, while Zhonghan pursued the truth behind the apocalypse. These two things cannot be obtained simultaneously in the current environment. After a long time, Xinyan was the first to reach out to Zhonghan. Then, see you in the next 8 years. Zhonghan paused when he heard this, then looked at her, chuckled, and reached out to shake her hand. Okay, see you in the next 8 years. I hope when we meet next time, I can find the answer.